Good morning, everybody. That was loud. Woo! Hi. Well, yeah, it's a little loud. I can whisper and still be heard. How fun is that? If you are in the building, we are glad to see you this morning. It's good to be with you. If you're online, we're glad you're joining us that way as well. Just a couple of announcements for you this morning. I forgot everything already, isn't that? That's bad. Next week, Sunday, we're going to gather here for our Agape Feast. We did this back in the fall. Instead of any worship gathering like this, we're going to share a meal together. We're going to gather around tables and eat, and that will be our morning together. So if you can, bring some food with you. That would be amazing. The sign-up is up there to bring something to share. We'll have coffee and juice, and we'll provide all the place settings. But if you bring something to share, that would be wonderful. And we will have a feast, and a joyful feast at that. We're looking forward to it. Also, Create registration is open. We talked about Create a little bit last week. I see some of the Create teachers dancing in the room. I love it. We are super excited to have a bunch of new classes this year, so it'll be great fun. Create is for kids who are going into kindergarten through 8th grade. So if that is your kid or one of your neighbors or a family member, we encourage you to invite them to come along and register all your kids. If you have questions, let me know. Becky and Bethany are also on the planning team, so you can let them know as well or ask any questions of them. If you are not planning to be a teacher, but you would still like to be involved in Create, if you have kids or not, if you are young or old or any creative ability at all, you are welcome to come and help. So if you would like to do that, let me know. We'll get you on the list and signed up in a fun spot real soon. Heather, what's next on who's back there? Is Ella back there? I can't see her head. Hi, Ella. Thank you, Ella. This morning, if you are, okay, I'm going to say branch students, but now pay really good attention. If you are in 5th grade through 12th grade, usually branch students is 6th, but we're including the 5th graders in this activity that we're doing so that you can get to know other students for next year, okay? So all 5th through 12th graders are going to be dismissed a little bit later this morning after communion. And go out with Mike and Janelle and possibly some of the other leaders as well to just connect, to have some conversations, to get to know some other students, to get to know the leaders. Our intention for this time is that branch students' regular gatherings end before spring break, and then there's this long gap before they start up again in September, right? So we wanted to give you an opportunity to connect with other students and for those 5th graders to get to know some people as well. So there may or may not be treats involved. There are treats involved. So you want to go, I promise. One other thing, I want to end on a celebration here. You all are amazing and wonderful and dedicated to the life of this faith community. And every week in your bulletin, you see an update about where our offerings are. And for the last few weeks, they've been pretty low. They've been behind where we needed to be. And then last week happened, and now we're way above. So thank you all for being dedicated to this group of people and for knowing that what we give can do a lot of good in the world. So thank you for being those people. All right. Now go say hi to one of those people that is amazing and wonderful. Stand up and say hello to somebody in the room. If you are online, say hello and let us know where you're joining us from this morning. So all the extroverts in the room loved that extended time of greeting, and the introverts are about ready to hurt me. So sorry about that. If you are online, we're having some video issues, but hopefully you can hear and you can see what our screens see. So hopefully we can get that fixed for you soon. But all right, would you please, now that you've all sat down, would you stand and join me in these words of a call to worship, and then we will sing together. Have you ever felt washed up, brittle, worn down to the bone? Have you ever felt grief lay heavy on your back? Have you ever felt like hope was out of reach? Have you ever wondered, can these bones live? If you have, then you are in the right place. Hope lives here. So come, rest your weary bones. Let's sing together. Oh, this pain, I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this earth, could all that is lost ever be found? Could a garden come up from this ground at all? You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. All around, hope is springing up from this old ground. Out of chaos, life is being found in you. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful
beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new.
You can have a seat, everybody. I love that song. I especially love singing it in the spring, though, because it's maybe a little easier to sing about looking around and that hope is springing up from this old ground. It's maybe a little easier to believe that that's possible, right? So thanks for joining your voice in that. Kiddos, young kiddos, you're welcome to head on out with Amy and Chris. They're back there excited for what lies ahead. And after communion is when we'll dismiss 5th through 12th graders for their time of connection. So that's coming. Let me invite you to turn this morning to a book in the Old Testament. It's the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel 37 is where you might want to be if you'd like to read along. You certainly don't have to. The words will be up here on the screen as well. I am reading this morning out of the New Living Translation, and this is a good little chunk, a larger passage, so, sit back. Open your ears. Open your heart this morning. So this is Ezekiel speaking as we come to verse 1. The Lord took hold of me, and I was carried away by the Spirit of the Lord to a valley filled with bones. He led me all around among the bones that covered the valley floor. They were scattered everywhere across the ground and were completely dried out. Then God asked me, Son of man, can these bones become living people again? O sovereign Lord, I replied, you alone know the answer to that. Then God said to me, speak a prophetic message to these bones and say, dry bones, listen to the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I'm going to put breath into you and make you live again. I will put flesh and muscles on you and cover you with skin. I will put breath into you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I spoke this message just as he told me. Suddenly, as I spoke, there was a rattling noise all across the valley. The bones of each body came together and attached themselves as complete skeletons. Then as I watched, muscles and flesh formed over the bones. Then skin formed to cover their bodies, but they still had no breath in them. Then God said to me, speak a prophetic message to the winds, Son of Man. Speak a prophetic message and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, O breath, from the four winds. Breathe into these dead bodies so they may live again. So I spoke the message as God commanded me, and breath came into their bodies. They all came to life and stood up on their feet, a great army. Then God said to me, Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old, dry bones. All hope is gone. Our nation is finished. Therefore prophesy to them and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. O my people, I will open your graves of exile and cause you to rise again. Then I will bring you back to the land of Israel. And when this happens, O my people, you will know that I am the Lord. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live again and return home to your own land. And then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken and have done what I said. Yes, the Lord has spoken. So Ezekiel is a prophet who has been given a vision. Verse 1 is interesting. It says that God takes hold of him. Almost as if Ezekiel has no choice in the matter. And leads him through this valley of dry bones. And in verse 11, God makes it clear to Ezekiel what these bones symbolize. Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old, dry bones. All hope is gone. Our nation is finished. So a little bit of context here. Ezekiel is a prophet during the time when Israel had been conquered by the empire of Babylon. And this defeat by Babylon meant that some of the people of Israel were taken from their homes, their villages, their cities, and made to walk hundreds of miles to the capital of the Babylonian Empire, where they then lived. Some were left in Judah and Israel, but everyone experienced loss, including the fact that their temple, which was the centerpiece of their faith, was destroyed. And so they cry out, we have become old, dry bones. All hope is gone. And in the midst of that heartache and that loss, God comes to Ezekiel with this question: can these bones live? It's a provocative question. And I can't help but think it's probably a question we have all asked. Not exactly in that way. But who hasn't wondered, will this ever change? Is healing possible? Will this injustice ever end? Will we ever move forward? Can these bones live? It's a question of hope, really, isn't it? And that's what God is asking Ezekiel. Is there any hope that these bones will ever live again? So this week I've been thinking a lot about hope, and I came across this quote from an Old Testament scholar, a person I'd recommend to you. His name's Walter Brueggemann, and he says this: hope is not just a vague feeling that things will work out, for it is evident that things will not just work out. Rather, hope is the conviction against a great deal of data that God is tenacious and persistent in overcoming the deathliness of the world, that God intends joy and peace. Israel and Ezekiel had a great deal of data, of deathliness, did they not? They had plenty of data. Separation from their homes, the death of their loved ones, an occupying empire, a destroyed religious system. The data of deathliness was everywhere. And verse 1 tells us that God took hold of Ezekiel and brought him to the valley floor. Not to a cliff far away overlooking the valley. No, God puts him among the bones. It's almost as if God is saying, look at the data, Ezekiel. Don't turn your eyes away. Don't try to ignore the bones or pretend that they're not there. It's important to see what is here, to be honest about what is true, even if what is true is painful. And as I've been thinking about this passage and God bringing Ezekiel to the valley floor, again, almost as if to say, look, I think about all the times in my life when I've not wanted to look. When I wanted to look away from the valley of bones. I've just wanted to pretend that they're not there. or that everything's fine. It'll all be okay. Because walking through the valley and looking at the bones is really hard to do. Thank you, Captain Obvious, right? But there's no shortage of data for you and me either. Ezekiel, Israel, they had plenty of data, so do we. There isn't one of us who doesn't know pain or isn't familiar with uncertainty. We have all experienced what it is to feel hollow and dried out. We've known that personally. We've known it collectively. We have plenty of data. And so perhaps this story is reminding us that the only way through is through. That these bones will live only if we resist pretending that there aren't any bones. We must acknowledge the valley before anything will change. We must voice our heartache, sit in the absence of hope, name the parts of our lives and the parts of our world that are in need of new life. See, hope doesn't ask us to be dishonest about the realities of our lives and our world. Hope is the conviction, in the face of all of the data, that God is tenacious and persistent in overcoming the deathliness of the world. In other words, hope is determined. Hope is resolute. Hope, you might even say, is a bit stubborn. And like Ezekiel, we are called to proclaim hope. And like him, we are invited to receive it. Ezekiel's called to proclaim hope. Then God said to me, Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old, dry bones, all hope is gone, our nation is finished. Prophesy to them, proclaim to them, and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Oh, my people, I will open your graves of exile and cause you to rise again. This is hope. In the face of a valley full of data that says otherwise, hope stubbornly stands up and proclaims that God is tenaciously persistent. That these dry bones are not the final note or the closing paragraph. So Ezekiel's to go to the people and remind them that God sees them and promises to open the graves of exile, the graves of despair, the graves of hopelessness, so that they would rise again. Hope is an audacious thing to proclaim. And yet we're invited to do precisely that, to be proclaimers of hope, people of hope. But let me kind of call a time out here for a moment and offer a few pastoral thoughts. Because we might hear this idea, we might read this story, think about how we are, like Ezekiel, called to proclaim hope. And so it's possible, I suppose, that we might think that we should therefore just go to someone who is in crisis and just say, hey, it's going to be okay. But remember that definition of hope that Brueggemann gives? Hope is not just saying or thinking that things are going to be okay. Because things are not okay. And they sometimes don't work out. And so, pastorally, let me invite you as people called to proclaim hope, to not equate hope with it's going to be okay. When we're with people who are in crisis, who feel like a dried up set of bones, I know I have felt and still feel when I'm with people in those places how much I want to just say something that will make it all better. Let me tell you from experience, it's a bad idea. it doesn't help. It doesn't help. So don't equate hope with it'll be okay, it's going to be fine, don't worry. Let me just strongly encourage you not to say that to people when you are with them in crisis or difficulty. And let me also encourage you pastorally, as people meant and called to proclaim hope, to not ignore the data. We not only want to say something that's just going to make it better when we're with people who are in difficulty. We also, I think, don't want to look at whatever is causing the difficulty. And that's why we often say things to try and make the tension and the discomfort go away. But I think one of the greatest gifts we give people when we sit with them in crisis and difficulty and pain and loss is we acknowledge the data. We acknowledge the pain. We say to someone, I cannot imagine how hard this must be. I see the pain this is causing you. My heart goes out to you. I am so sorry. I think it's really important to acknowledge the data instead of trying to just gloss over it or maybe not talk about it. We don't want to bring it up because we don't want to. No. Again, this is anyone can certainly disagree with me because I'm leaning heavily into my experience here. But I have found repeatedly that what people need when they are in crisis is someone to come along and just sit next to them. Sometimes say nothing at all. And if they say anything, it is to simply say, I see you. And I see what you are feeling. And I see how hard this is. It's not to say that there isn't a moment and a time to also say to someone, God is with you. God sees your pain. That might be part of maybe even kind of recognizing the data. As people of hope, I think we can and should say at some point in the right moments with people, this is not the end. I don't know what the end is. I don't know how this is going to work out, if it even is going to work out, but I know this isn't the end of your story. So a couple pastoral notes there. As we wrestle with, I think, this invitation to be proclaimers of hope. It doesn't mean, I don't think, just going about our lives and just hope, 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 be hopeful, right? I don't think that's it. And we can be people who say God sees you and God's promise is to breathe life into you again. We can and should say that as proclaimers of hope. So there's some tension there, I think. The prophets didn't maybe have to worry about this quite so much, or maybe they did, I don't know. They often seem very bold and willing to just proclaim it, period. But I think most of the time in our lives, there's some wisdom needed about how to go about being people of hope. But we're called to proclaim it, and I'd invite you to just think for a moment, you probably already are, is there anyone in your life who is in a place of being a collection of dry bones? Is there anyone in your life for whom you can be a voice of hope? A voice of honestly acknowledging the data. A voice who doesn't try and gloss over the pain. We're called to proclaim it, and we're called to receive it. So we know from chapter 1 of the book of Ezekiel, we read chapter 37 this morning. If you start at the beginning of the book of Ezekiel, verse 1 of chapter 1, we learn that Ezekiel is living in exile with many other Israelites. Which means that Ezekiel has been taken captive. It means that he was forced to leave his home. It means he witnessed Babylon's destruction firsthand. Right? The misery and the hopelessness of the people of Israel is not something that Ezekiel is unfamiliar with or somehow detached from. Yes, he's a prophet, but he's also an Israelite, and like all Israelites, he has lived through the horror and the trauma that the Babylonians have brought. And so maybe it's not a stretch to imagine that these words in verse 11 are words Ezekiel has spoken or even thought. I think we tend to put the people of the Bible up here and we think that they're somehow above the fray or that they didn't struggle. I just don't think that's true. If you read the Bible, you find out these people are really human. And if they're really human, then how does Ezekiel not have moments when he wonders these questions of hope and hopelessness? So I can't help but think that this vision that Ezekiel saw wasn't just meant to help him understand what God was doing or what the people were feeling, but if it wasn't also meant to help him heal himself. Maybe these stubborn, tenacious words of hope were not just for the people of Israel, but were for Ezekiel too. And maybe they're for us as well. Maybe these words today are for you. Maybe you came in here in need of remembering God's tenacious and persistent pursuit and commitment to overcoming the deathliness of the world. We're called to be proclaimers of hope. I think we're invited to receive hope. Those are big things. They're complex things. How do we do it? I mean, I felt kind of all week like, how do you preach about hope? And how do you say to people, be hopeful? I don't actually know that I know how to do that. So we're going to lean into something other than just words. We're going to lean into art. Art often helps us when the words are hard to come by or it's unclear how to communicate or what to say. We've looked at this image before, actually. I want to invite you to consider it again. If you're online with us, there's a link in the chat window that you can click on that will take you to all of the images in a series called Streams in the Wasteland by Josh Thiessen. And this is one of those images, Can These Bones Live? Which should sound familiar. He's taking his inspiration from Ezekiel 37. We just invite you to take a look. And let me ask you what you notice. What do you notice about this image? If you were with us months and months and months ago, I don't know, maybe a year ago when we looked at this last, you might even remember what you saw then. And maybe it's good to see the same thing again. Maybe you see something new. But let me just open it up and invite anyone and everyone to just share what they notice in this picture. What do you see? What catches your eye? And you can just say it out loud. The light's coming from within the bones. What else do you notice? Say again? New light? Yeah. Where do you see that in this picture? The butterfly? Yep. Do you notice anything else? Mm. The butterfly, the sign of life, is small, fragile, could easily be crushed if a bone fell on it. Yeah. The butterfly is what? Hmm. Yeah. It's Calvin's connecting the light again to the butterfly, and yeah, yeah. I remember you saying that, actually. It's one of the comments that stuck with me. CJ was saying last time we looked at this image, he had made the note that butterflies had just recently been added to the endangered species list. Again, speaking to the fragility of this creature that's carrying life. Yeah. I just noticed that this time I noticed that one rib that's like laying on the ground. I don't know. To me, it says like the skeleton's been here for a while. It's been in this place of hopelessness for a long time. Well, let me show you another image from Josh Thiessen. This was kind of the first in a two-part series. This one is called Rise Up. And if you want to take a really close look at it, there's a book in the middle back there. You can just turn one page, and you'll see this one. So it's, on these screens, I don't know how well you can see it. Is there anything you notice in this image? Again, it's, maybe a little hard to make out the details, but the legs are still bones. Yeah. And there's a couple of bones on the rock formation that this person is rising up from, which is interesting. Play of light and dark, Kevin's mentioning, yeah. Light on the parts that have been made new, and less light, darkness almost still on the bones. Yeah, I think that's how it looks to me too. The butterflies are circling and lifting up, and there's not one butterfly. So maybe hope isn't quite as fragile as we thought, in a way. I don't know if that's what he's saying, but there's these two other spires in the back. You can't make them out here on the screens, but they're two other people who are being reformed. And there's a swirl of butterflies around them too. Yeah. So I want to just leave this up here as we share communion together. And maybe in some way, shape, or form, this image will continue to speak to you. I certainly invite you to be open to that. And open to, what this table may have to say about hope. Because this table is about death, of course. It's about a body being broken, a life poured out, and it's about things coming back together. Because we know the remainder of the story. We know that the broken body doesn't remain broken. And a life poured out actually is somehow restored. And so we have this morning some words that I've said, take them or leave them, these images, this art, and then these tactile gifts. So if you're at home, I'd invite you to find something as well, bread, some form of juice, so you can share in these different ways that we might be able to come at hope this morning. And just ask ourselves, is God inviting me to be a proclaimer of hope in some way in someone's life? Is God inviting me this morning to receive hope? Both? Right? To serve communion, I do need a few folks who would be willing to do that. That was a quick hand, and I like it. A couple of them. Come on up here, gentlemen. Are there a couple more people who would be willing to help? Like another adult, perhaps? Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Teresa, or Heather, is there gluten-free? Are there a little cracker? You're totally fine. We'll just kind of stay here for a sec. You're going to do this, apparently. I like it. Yep. You got this? We'll have a station in the back. We'll have a station in the front. Thanks. We will have gluten-free up here in a moment. So if you're a gluten-free person, you may just want to wait just a second. But I invite you to come and to take a piece of bread that Teddy will give you, or that Nolan will give you, and take a cup, bring them back to your seat. We'll eat and drink them together once everyone has them. But know that these are the gifts of God for the people of God. And we give thanks. Amen. Feel free to come forward or to the back, and we'll share these gifts here together. Say this is the body of Christ. Do you think you can say that? Okay, I'll say it. Yeah. This is the body of Christ broken for you. I'm just going to say the same thing to everybody. This is the body of Christ broken for you. Great. Stephanie, the body of Christ broken for you. Mel, this is the body of Christ broken for you. The body of Christ broken for you, and for you, Elizabeth. Uncle Matt, the body of Christ broken for you. The body of Christ broken for you, JP. Body of Christ broken for you. Can you give Micah a piece of bread? receive these gifts from young people who are full of life and hope. Maybe that is an inspiration to us today, but we take and eat and drink so that we might taste and we might literally take into us these gifts that remind us that even when we feel dry and broken, it is not the end of the story. Death does not have the last word. So take and eat this morning. Perfect timing. The little ones are returning. The not-so-little ones are welcome to leave. If they'd like, 5th graders through 12th graders. Again, this is a chance for students to just connect, to have some donuts. Yes, we said donuts. To hang out, talk a little bit. And I think you're headed downstairs, Mike and Janelle. It's probably going to be easiest and best. And so parents, if we're done before they are, just know they're going to be right underneath our feet in the larger room in the basement.
If you are a partner at the branch, you were with us last Sunday night. Partner is just what we call members, because we don't like normal words. We wanted to give you a little recap of what happened at that meeting and show you a little bit of hope that came from that as well. So we started the meeting off with a conversation on a vote that we had to take, which doesn't happen a lot here at the branch, but we decided unanimously to move classes, which is just a group of churches, so that we can more fully live into who we are as a community of faith. It is the catalyst of that move really was that a new classes will let us be open and affirming as we already are, but they can't say anything about it. They're not gonna try and convince us otherwise, or try and convince us to act in ways that we don't want to act. So this move allows us to fully live into who we are as a faith community. The conversation that night, can I just tell you, was amazingly in-depth and thoughtful. The questions that you all asked were really good questions that showed you are people of hope, you are people of love, and you are people who will always stand up with those who have been marginalized and hurt by the church in the past. That was beautiful. So thank you for being those people. And then we had a quick little building update. But then one of the most beautiful moments of the night, Heather, can you put up that next picture here, was this. This is the result of 3 questions that we asked. We asked you all, what do you value about the branch? What do we uniquely have to offer in this city? And who are we uniquely able to love and reach well? And this was your 3-minute brainstorm, which was incredible. Some of the things that came out of there are kind of exactly what Chris was talking about this morning. The first question was, what do you value about the branch? Questions like, I can come as I fully am. We can be vulnerable, we can be authentic. It's a space where we know we are safe. With all of our emotions, with all of our questions, with all of our doubts, however we are in life, this is a place that is safe. The second question was that, what do we uniquely have to offer our city? And similar themes came out. It is a safe place for people to ask questions, to be who they fully are. A place where everyone is loved and included. A place that is safe for those who have been hurt by the church or excluded from the church historically. And then who are we uniquely able to love well and reach well? kind of summed up in this response. Individuals who are not welcomed elsewhere or who have not felt comfortable in other churches. That's who we get to love. That's who a lot of us are, right? So we've all been in those valleys. We've been in seasons of the valley. And we get to be the people who proclaim hope to one another, sometimes here on a Sunday morning, sometimes in our neighborhoods, but always those people who proclaim hope, but also those who really, really need it sometimes, right? So we thought it was appropriate and lovely to share those responses on this day when we talked about the story of Ezekiel. We'll get those, all of those responses out to you so you can take a look. I may have shed a few tears over the beauty of those, so I'll invite you to do the same. It'll be great fun. We also wanted this morning to tell a story. Tell a story of being in those seasons of a valley. Because, like Chris said this morning, it's so easy to kind of skirt right over the top of it and say that doesn't exist, right? The hard doesn't exist. But we have to be willing to go into the valley and walk through it. So Stephanie is bravely going to come and share a story with us. We are so grateful. Do you want to encourage her just a little bit because you love her?
I told Teresa I'm just going to look at her and pretend you're not all out there. So.
Sorry, y'all don't exist. We're just hanging. We should have coffee. Yeah, that's what we're doing. So, Stephanie, can you tell us about a time when it felt like you were in the valley, when all hope was lost? What led up to that? What was that? What were the events of that?
Yeah. My dad is one of 4 kids, and they grew up on a farm, and they would tell the best stories when we would get together for family gatherings. And those are some of my favorite childhood memories are with my dad's grandparents, or my dad's parents and his siblings and all of my cousins. And it was always on someone else's farm because everybody except my dad lived on a farm. And so we did what farm kids do, which is get in a lot of trouble and nobody knows about it.
What? Farm kids do that?
And when I got married, I assumed that's what I was getting in the deal. Not the farm. I don't feel the need to live on a farm. But I've always been a forward thinker. And when I got married, I was picturing hanging out with my grandkids around the fire pit and big, boisterous family gatherings. And in January of 2020, that dream died. My husband told me he was leaving. And it wasn't out of the blue. 2018 and 2019 were really hard years for us with lots of time in therapy and lots of tears and talking to Chris and Teresa and lots of people. So it wasn't out of the blue, but it felt like I got the wind knocked out of me. So then in February of 2020, I found myself working full-time, which I had been working exactly the number of hours that my kids were in school. And so it was perfect. They were in school, I did my job, they came home, my job was over, and now financially I needed to work full-time. By God's grace, I have always worked from home, so that was okay. And then on March 13th, this little thing called COVID showed up on our doorstep, and my kids stopped going to school. So now I'm working full-time, I'm making more hours out of my day, and my kids are home all the time, and we all need the internet all the time, and we're all unmuting at the same time, and one kid is taking ukulele, and how does that even work? So I'm working, my kids are here all the time, no one can go anywhere, and I'm navigating all of this without my best friend of 20 years. And I can't even go over and sit on my friend's couch and cry because of this stupid COVID. And it was a really long, dark valley.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit what that valley felt like? Name some of the emotions that were there.
The word that keeps coming to mind when I think about it is it just felt endless. When you go to the dentist and get a root canal, you know there's an end. Like they're going to stop drilling and your tooth is going to be done and it's over. Or when you're having a baby, there's an end. You literally can't be in labor forever. But I could not see an end. I mean, this was the end. My marriage was over. This dream of my big, boisterous family gatherings was dead. And I couldn't, it just felt endless.
What a horrible place to sit in. I think a lot of us felt similar feelings of that with COVID, but multiply that times a million, right? When you're going through this, plus a world pandemic when everything is questionable. Was there a moment where you felt a butterfly, where you felt yourself able to feel just a little bit of hope, or an event that was helpful as you started to come out of that?
Yeah, so there were, I don't know if you were going to ask this question next, but there's a group of women who circled around me. Only one of them is here today, but we have a text thread going, and it's a multi-year text thread, and sometimes that thread would make me laugh, and sometimes I would just curse, and it was okay. And they came and ate tacos with me in my garage the first night that my girls were at their dad's house, and I was home alone. And it was freezing cold because we were sitting in the garage because of this stupid COVID thing. But they were there. They sat in the cold with me. We took walks together outside. And they let me cry, and they let me curse, and they let me just be a mess. So that was one thing that helped me get through. But then I kind of had to laugh when you asked me to talk this morning, because the first real glimmer of light that I remember in this valley was the last time Chris talked about this passage. Because it didn't catch me until I went home later and was thinking about it. In verse 12, in the Message translation, it says, "I will dig up your graves and bring you out alive." Nowhere in this passage does God say to Israel, "I'll keep you from getting to the grave." And to be honest, that kind of pissed me off. Because God certainly could, right? He could have saved my marriage. He could have stopped Babylon. He could have gotten Jesus off the cross. But he didn't. But all he does say is, "I will breathe my life into you and you will live." The grave, it isn't the end. That dark valley, as long and endless as it isn't the end.
That was beautiful. Thank you. She's done now. Yep, that is all of my words. Thank you, Stephanie, so very much. It's not the end, and you're right. God doesn't promise that you won't go through the garbage. Never once does God promise that. But God does promise to be with you. And sometimes, most times, that's what we get to do. We get to be with people in the mess and in the garbage. That's how we get to show God's love and bring a little hope to the world. So thank you, Stephanie, very, very much. The band is going to come back up, and we are going to close with one more song today. So we're going to invite you to stand and sing with us here in just a little minute. We're missing some people.
You heard the cry of our hearts, and you came down. Freely you gave us your love. Showing us how, and make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me so love. Where there is darkness, let me shine light. And may your love cause us to open up, cause us to open up our hearts. And may your light cause us to shine so bright that we bring hope into the dark. And all that we do without love and it means nothing. Grant us the courage to give. And as you're calling, and make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is darkness, let me shine light. Oh, may your love cause us to open up, cause us to open up our hearts. And may your light cause us to shine so bright that we bring hope into the dark. And hope for the hopeless, your love is. Strength in our weakness, and your love is. And may we love and as you love. Hope for the hopeless, your love is. Strength in our weakness, your love is. May we love and as you love, and may we love and as you love. May we love and as you love.
That is our hope and prayer, that we would be those people this week. And so as we get ready to leave, let me invite you to stand. We're going to bless each other with these words, a blessing we've been using the last number of months now. Ready? Let's say this to each other. As you leave this place, may God bless you with seeking. Seek out the hungry, seek the weary, seek the good in every person you pass. Seek out the hopeful, seek the faithful, seek God in each of us. And as you seek, and as you wonder, may you find what you're looking for. In the name of our loving God, who is always seeking us, go now in peace. Amen. Amen. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.